All right, my people. Let's go ahead and jump right in. Today, we're going to be breaking down the 10 keys to mastering the science of language. This is the technology of the higher realm. These are the 10 keys that allows you to oscillate and vibrate at the highest level of the game. Today's message is extremely important from the perspective of understanding what language actually is, as it is the way by which division is created or manufactured. This is manufactured division. So when we talk about the definition of the word language, we really, again, look at it from a general perspective. What we're talking about is the fact that, okay, it's a way by which we're able to communicate. So when we lost our ability to operate in, let's use the word mental telepathy, that created a systematic property of which certain characteristics, which you call signs and symbols and sigils, they represent sound. So sound is placed inside of this thing that we call grammar or grammaria or Pragmatics. And so to the ability that you are able to operate in, to control, to use that term, sound, that determines your ability, that determines your degree, for lack of a better term, of, let's use the word excellency. So there are different degrees of oscillation and vibration. When we talk about the fact that pure frequencies don't really use vocal systems, they don't really use the tongue. That was a lowered down, a dumbed down version of the original. So all of the psychology, sociology, biology, all the sciences, everything is these are subdivisions and subfields of this thing that we call linguistics. So linguistics is a dumbed down version of a higher realm of, let's use the word mental telepathy. And so Henrik Cornelius Agrippa published a book way back in the day in 1510. It is called The Three Books of the Occult Philosophy. In chapter 33 of the book, it starts off by saying, of the tongues of angels and of their speaking amongst themselves and with us. And he goes on and he talks about how from the tongues of angels. And so these are the tongues of angels that we're talking about. And so what we are looking at is the structure, the meaning, the history, the acquisition, and the use of language or language. Each one of us, again, has the ability to, let's use the word, tap into the way by which we can structure subatomic particles. Because when we look at language and the tongues of language, and we talk about the 10 areas that we control with the tongue. So those 10 areas are what we call phonics, phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics, pragmatics, historical linguistics, socialinguistics, computational linguistics, and psycholinguistics, or psychological linguistics. So those are the 10 ways by which we structure thought. So thought is structured in a manner or in a way that allows us to be able to, let's use the word, move forward, or to be able to cause division. Because if we all had the same language, we would all be on one accord. We would all be able to operate, oscillate, and vibrate according to the way source code, designed us to operate and vibrate. But we're not on, again, one accord, because we all speak different languages. And these different languages, our ability to understand is based upon phonics. So the first key is phonics. And actually, even before we get into breaking down these 10 keys, let's go back just a little bit to understand what my boy Henrik or Agrippa was talking about inside of the ancient text. So inside of the ancient text, we see this guy that's talking about the technology of the higher realm. And in the technology of the higher realm, Agrippa in chapter 23 of his book states, we may doubt whether angels or demons, since they are pure spirits, whether or not they use vocal cords or vocal speech or tongues amongst themselves and with us. But that Paul in some place says, talking about again the Paul of the Helios Biblios of the Bible, if I speak with the tongues of men or angels, but what their speech or tongue is much doubted by many. So even though it's talking about in the Bible speaking with the tongues of angels and men, nobody really understands the definition of that word tongues. It talks about it also in the Bible in 1 Corinthians when it talks about love. Though I speak with the tongues. So when we look at it, it's extremely important, like everything, because what we're talking about is how Enoching was established. And we know that Enoching is the language of fallen angels, which is what we call English. English. Well, we do it English. So all
right, my people, this is a recording of the original text or the original recording. And we're going to skip ahead just a little bit to pick up or to get the entire audio, 2-hour audio, along with the 200-page book. You already know what to do. Go to the website, masterteacher33.com. Make that payment of $9.99 for the entire series. If you're listening to this between July the 1st and July the 4th, and let's go to the 5th, you can pick it up for 50% off for $4.99 to get this series. If you purchase this series, I also include the series on decoding God and decoding wealth for free, or you get two for the price of one. So let's make the payment of $499 to pick up the 10 keys to the science of language or linguistics, as well as decoding God and downloading wealth. So we're going to skip ahead a little bit, get a little bit to the meat of the message so you can hear why you need to pick up the entire series along with the book for this life-changing series. Please tune in.
And when we talk about something as simple, but it ain't simple, we don't really understand and understand the Phoenicians, because dead Phoenicians is dead phonics. So phonics comes from Abraham, which is the branch of linguistics. It is the physical sound that is produced, transmitted, and perceived. That is the foundation of war. So if I want to fight you, the elite are taught how to fight using spirit. Negroes are not. The inability for you to articulate, to produce movement with speech. Can you make somebody get up off their chair with your speech? Now you got to go back to school. You should be able to articulate using acoustics that affects people on an auditory level. I don't use my hands anymore. I'm an orator. I'm a communicator. Now, I'm not get twisted. It's not like I forgot how to use my hands. I just use rule-based systems. And the first system of the higher realm is the ability to understand what parts of the mouth and the throat and how they used to create airflow. Remember, the key to the game, as I said at the beginning, is compressed air into motion. They call that pneumatic, or remember, we call it pneuma. We call it the Holy Spirit. But the Holy Spirit is the activator. So even in electronics, they have something that creates, it's a device that creates circular and linear motion. And it's like a compressor. You go and you buy an air compressor, it's based upon what they call pneumatic. It's based upon a pneumatic activator. So if you Google a pneumatic activator, it's going to bring up a machine. And it's not going to show you anything that is spiritual. But but how do they make the machine? It's like the word pneumonia. Pneumonia comes from the same word. Pneumatic. Pneumaticos. All of those come from the word pneuma. So it's Pneumatic. What was the word? Again, pneumatic. There are pneumatic tools. And what are pneumatic tools? These are power tools that are driven by compressed air rather than electricity or other energy sources. I mean, I can't make this shit up. They're powering tools with God, source. You're supposed to be making all of your money using the print. The print is over the power of the air, right? The power is in the air. Tesla created and, remember he got unalived because he over-selected the same thing that dude that created the car that ran off of air. Nobody's seen him. I don't know what happened to him. This young black Nigerian dude. I think he's from Nigeria. He came over here. We came over here to sign a big contract. They said they poisoned him. I don't know how many tips. I think they must have got him because I haven't seen him. But Jibbe, have you heard anything? Seen anything from that the young black cat that was created a car that ran off of? It was one ran off electrical waves. Another guy, I remember the first guy created one that ran off water. He's a white dude. He got unalive. Anybody that uses pneumatic tools, air compression, to generate and deliver energy by compressing air to create movement, you will be unalived. Because only gods and goddesses can do that. The prince is over the power of the air. So unless you work for the prince, and if you're part of this, but when you use your vocal cords, how do they work? Same thing. Your vocal cords are nothing but an air compression. It functions the same way. Your larynx, your voice box. Again, go look it up. I've done this show before. You look up your larynx, go type it in. Ladies, type it in. Especially ladies. Because what does it look like? What does your larynx look like? Looks like the vagina. The voice box. Why? You're giving birth. Every time you speak, you give birth, bruh. I don't know how powerful do. You know how powerful you are? When you get to this level of the game, you realize, like the Bible says, you got to give an account for every idle word that you speak. The larynx, if you look at the larynx, especially the real picture of the larynx, it blows. It's transformative, we'll put it that way. It is wild. See, my boy, Brother Jimmy, they sent a picture that shows exactly what I'm talking about. He has an air compressor. It's wild to me that if you could, again, it's almost impossible for us to understand the power. Ladies, you have and can give birth. Not only with your voice box, but also with your spiritual portal. You are powerful beyond your wildest imagination. But what happens to us, not only ladies, but men too, we forget that we are begotten. We fall prey to the dominant culture's ability to dominate us. And we unalive ourselves before we are unalived. How do we do it? Because we forget to master the 10 keys of land, goo, age, which is nothing but celestial and intellectual magic. Now, the second of these 10 keys, which again, all of these are, there's no particular order. The next is what we call phonology. Phonology, just like, again, phonics, all of these are equally important. Phonology is the study of patterns and how they create change. That's a whole, remember, each one of these are a book and a science all within itself. For the sake of time, obviously, don't have time to go into depth, but it's extremely important that you take the time to do your own research to study yourself approved, right? When we get into this, the ancient text that we'll be talking about later on tonight. Again, we're just going to be scratching the surface, but that's why this is called magic. Is it magic? Absolutely not. But is it magic? Depending on who you talk to. Because, yeah, it could be perceived as magic because magic is the ability to manipulate the flow of energy. In this case, the energy is air. So that's all magic is. So my voice box is manipulating the flow. So your voice box has the power to do the same thing. Now, whether you utilize that power or not, that's another subject for another time. But you do have that power. You do have that ability. That nobody trick you into believing that you do not have that power or that ability, because you do. And so that's all we're talking about. Now, again, we could go in depth into it. All we're simply expressing to you today is the fact that when you talk, like I'm doing right now, based upon all of the 10 keys, phonology. Phone is the way by which sound and patterns travel. Ology means based upon words. Phonics, again, is the study of how sound is produced. Phonology is the study of how sound and patterns change, which takes us to number 3, morphology. Morphology, remember Morpheus in the Matrix, his name was Morpheus, because he was able to morph, which is the ability to change. Based upon sound patterns, I can change my molecular structure, literally, shapeshift. We just have lost the science of how the structure of words, changing the structure of words, the study of word structure. Morphology is, in and of itself, it's a powerful, deep, esoteric study. Morphology, how you literally can morph based upon words. You can make people change based upon your speech. That's a great orator. That's what politicians do. They are able to create an internal structure inside of your brain using words. These are called morphemes. Is that where we get the word? Like morphine, the drug. But it's not morphine because it's spelled, again, Morphemes. Morphemes, not like morphine or the drug, but that's where we get the word Morpheus from. It's just the ability to change. That's all morph means, is to change form. So when you talk, you are going inside of people's bodies, literally. And you have the ability to go inside people's brains, if you will. And when you go inside that person's brain, you create a whole new form, a whole new frequency, a whole new wave, a whole new verb, a whole new vibration. So you literally are giving birth with your voice box. The ability to understand the power that we have to change, but it all goes back to the foundation. And most of us don't really live or dwell with or talk about the foundation of all frequencies, waves, verbs, and vibes. Granted, it's important, I understand that, but when we talk about light bill paying activity, The people that make the most money in this world are the best communicators, the orators. Because if you can move people with your voice instead of with your hands, the ability to convince someone to believe. The Bible says that anybody that, goes out in Matthew 23, number woe to you scribes and Pharisees, you make when you go out and recruit, you make that person twofold more candidate of hell because you convince them to give up their spiritual power. Because a scribe is nothing but a grammar writer, a grammatus. A Pharisee is nothing but a orator. So this power that people who operate in this frequency range is what the Helios Biblios is talking about. Those are the orators. Your job is to understand that, wow, those people have extreme abilities that the average Archibaldon doesn't really understand how powerful language is. Because we do not understand the science behind decoding cars, downloading wealth by operating inside of the seraphim field, which is a specific scientific information field that tapped into at the active record. If you express what you have tapped into through thought, that's spiritual awakening. That's the ability for you to go to number 4. So we got phonics, we got phonology, we got morphology. Now we got syntax. I like the word syntax because it's the sin in this tax. So I'm going to tax you when you sin. But it's what? It's the study of sin and structure. The 4th key to your spiritual power of the higher realms is for you to structure your sentences because it's a sentence. A sentence. Now, we need to understand. You go to trial and you get convicted of a crime and you get sentenced. They give you a sentence. So your word formation, we're talking about, that's what grammatica and grammatus is so powerful. Because you have the ability to levy a tax, a payment. If you understand how to fuse, to isolate, to do what they call polysynthetic expression, which is the ability to create a whole sentence in English or bent light. English is called bent light. This is the language of bent light beings. That's why they want English to be the universal language, because it's the language of the fallen angels. So when you understand a sentence that is structured in a particular SVO, you guys remember SVO from high school? Subject, verb, object. SVO, subject, verb, object. You should have a subject, that should be a verb, and then that should be a specific object by which. So syntax helps us understand who is doing what to whom inside of a sentence. It creates a grammatical relationship or connection. Because there's a specific subject that you got to talk about. Now, remember, verb are action words, but they need to be a specific object. So the subject, verb, object. So if I say the dog, what is that? The dog is the subject. And I'll say the dog ran. Okay, ran is an action word. The dog ran after the cat. The object. The dog, subject. Ran, verb. Cat, object. If you structure a sentence, you put a person in jail. You got that power. If you can wrap your brain around the statement that I just said, You have the power to govern the structure of people's brains. You determine what they do, especially when you do it with emotion. If I'm coming to you and I'm talking about a subject, Master Teacher 33 or Master Teacher 360, and then I'm saying this high transformative intelligence will elevate your consciousness. That's the verb. I'm telling you what it's going to do. I'm telling you that these classes are going to elevate your consciousness so that way you can be and operate in wealth, health, wisdom, and getting your toes curled. That's the objective. What is the goal? Get my toes curled. Be the smartest person in the room. Make sure every organ in my body functions according to its God-given purpose, destiny, and design. Make sure I have everything I need for life and godliness. Ready to pay all my bills ahead of time. That's the goal. Okay, what is the role? If I reverse engineer SVO, I got O, now I need the vehicle. That's the verb. Verb is the action. So I have an object. But for me to get that object, I gotta take action. But for me to take action, I need a subject. Purpose. Purpose creates action to accomplish goals. Syntax, structure, power. The principle that governs jail time. When you go to court, the judge determines how much time you're going to spend. You determine how much time you spend chasing your dreams based upon what? How you structure your sentence inside of a mantra. What if you use the wrong mantra? You're going to spend a lot of time because you did not use a proper phrase that creates the proper clause or cause. It's very important that we phrase our terms correctly in order for us to oscillate and vibrate at the highest level of the game. Syntax is huge because it literally creates that subject, verb, sentence structure. Because that's the amount of time that it takes you to climb. It's the amount of time that you're going to spend because you determine how much time you spend based upon the structure of your design, how you structure your speech. So true of, again, is this structured consciousness. It's structured. You have to structure it in a particular manner, but you got to provoke and invoke. That is an invocation. The dominant culture, they over and understand invocations better than most of us. And to the degree that we can over and understand how to structure thought, it allows us to oscillate and vibrate at the highest level or a higher level of the game. So it's very, very important that you over and understand SVO. Every time you are structuring, especially when you're writing something, you want to make sure that you understand the subject, the verb, the object. The subject, the verb, the object. You keep that in the back of the brain. So that way people, they determine how long based upon the subject, the verb, and the object. Because your action is based upon the subject. So if I got a good subject, I'm going to take massive action to accomplish the goal of the object. That's syntax. Next we have one of the biggest keys of the game, which is Semantics. So we got Phonetics, we got Phonology, we got Morphology, we got Syntax, now we got Semantics. Semantics is, I love semantics because semantics is the study of linguistical meaning, definitions. So I'm an etymologist. So what I'm talking to you today is what I do for a living. This is what I do every morning when I wake up. This is what I've been doing for 30 years. Remember, I did a whole, I think 60-day series on linguistics, language. That was good 10 years ago. And so today what we're focusing on is the implementation of it. So we don't want just intellectual knowledge. I want to be able to understand that, okay, I'm making a sound with my voice. Can the sound that I'm producing, number one, is it perceivable? Are you perceiving what I'm saying? I need to make sure that I'm communicating. And the only way that I'm communicating is if you feel what I'm saying. That my definitions are the same as yours. Fine. Then I want to make sure that my sound that I'm making is going to create a psychological change. So that way we both have the same perception. And that perception is going to change how we are thinking. That's morph. And then the way that we morph, that's going to determine the amount of time it's going to take us to get from point A to point B. For me, I'm behind an 8 ball. So if I was under 30, I'd be taking my time. But since I'm over 60, I have a sense of more of an awareness. So that's why you see me doing so many shows. You see me grinding so much. Man, that's why you like, wait. I realize I have less Christmases, so to speak. If I live another 40 years, I'll be 100. But most people, they transition, according to the statistics, at what, 70, 75? So you will see that more of a sense. So that's what you pick up when you see the paste. I have a sense. So I'm transitioning that through my structure called syntax. And so the way that I create more of a sense is by now semantics, which is the study of linguistical meaning. So my semantics, if you know who you talk to, how you pronounce it, may be a little bit more, what's the word? Meaningful. It just simply means that my language, how I'm using the words, how I'm using my phrases, how I'm structuring my sentences, I'm representing ideals that requires you to take massive actions and develop more of a relationship. So semantics simply means that I'm conveying meaning. I got an intent. What is my intent? For you to be wealthy, for you to be healthy, for you to be wise, and for you to be with great relationship with yourself, with your God, your family, your friends, for you not to engage with low vibrational frequencies vibration.
All right, my high vibrational expression of water. We'll stop it there. As you can tell, man, this is a very in-depth study. You want to pick up the entire series, the entire audio, as well as the book cost is $4.99, and it also includes the book Decode God as well as Download Wealth. That is a 21-day step-by-step process of understanding how to use what we're talking about in this series, the science of language, to structure thought so you can download the consciousness of source and communicate it to others. So again, this is just a short snippet of the entire series or the entire audio. So you would definitely want to pick that up by to the website, teacher.com, donation, and pick up the book as well as the series. Appreciate you, love you. We're going to see you at the top. God bless.